I'm going to give us a second here, let people matriculate in. Do you think FSU can matriculate the ball down the field against Wake Forest this weekend?
One would hope.
We will see. All right, let's get this live so I can throw this onto the Knowles 24/7 message board. On the Twitter. We're going to do a little Buyer Sonone. Hey, if you have Buyer Sonone questions, you can drop them in on the Unconquered message board, folks, or you can ask them here as well as we're live. Maybe we'll do some Buyer Sonone. All right. Time to get the podcast going. What up, Chris? 3, 2, 1. Welcome to On the Bench. I am Brendan Sonone. I'm joined by Christopher Nee. Combined, we are 2/3 of On the Bench, but it's just going to be us as we preview FSU Wake Forest. I think Josh is out on the game preview stuff, Chris. It's safe to say.
No, 0-2 starts will do that to a man.
Yeah, that'll happen. Someone said, is my watch broken, or did Brendan forget how to use YouTube? Why? What did I say? What did I do?
I presume maybe they're referencing that we expected to start this earlier, that you provided time earlier.
I said around 10, a little bit after 10, and then I jumped in at about 10 or 9:30, saying it was going to be closer to 10:30. Briley, calm down. Everything's fine.
I apologize. My kid had very motley-looking chops on the side of his head, so we had to go get him a haircut. So that's why I'm here now.
Priorities. Little Carson Nee could not have mutton chops at 8 years old. It's just that's not
bad
a good
look, kid.
Yeah, bad look. And a bad look on the parents, too, I will say. You can't have your kid looking scruffy, Chris. All right, so I said everything will be okay. I'm just saying that. I don't know if everything's going to be okay, Chris. FSU is 0-2 going up to Wake Forest. They opened up as a 5-point underdog. I haven't checked where the line is right now, but FSU presumably still an underdog. Trying to avoid the first 0-3 start since...
I haven't looked it up, but I intend to before kickoff.
Well, I was wrong when I said that FSU hadn't won a road game since 2018 on the last podcast. Or so 2017 on the last podcast. It was 2018. No, wait, 2019. Still wrong. Against Boston College.
Walk away from it, Sonone. Okay. Just walk away.
No, I got this one right. This one's right. You can listen to me this time, I promise. FSU has not started 0-3 on the season since 1976, which would have been Bobby Bowden's first year. FSU started 0-3. 0-3 since then. So that's what FSU's up against. Mike Norvell and co. are trying to get this back on track. I think let's start there, Chris. Things have the potential. I know they feel really bad right now at 0-2 after that JSU loss, but there's still potential for things to get even worse if you go to 0-3, 0-1 in ACC play. We're talking about cultural stuff, questioning it internally. So how big is this game coming up for FSU to win?
Well, this game was huge before the season ever kicked off. It's the first ACC game, so there's that component. Wake Forest is one of those teams that you view as potentially beatable, but also good enough to definitely beat you, even on a good day for your team. A lot of super seniors, very sound fundamental technique kind of team, knows who and what they are on both sides of the ball, does enough things effectively. They're going to post points. They're also probably going to give up some points, but the defense is capable of creating a stop here and there. Wake is a good ball club. When you're FSU and you're trying to stack, we've used a number of half dozen victories quite often throughout the preseason and into the season. When you're that team, this is one of those games that feels like a swing game with that number, and it's ultra important. And then you add the component of the fact they're 0-2, so close to a big upset in week 1, obviously a devastating loss in week 2. It just adds to it. It further compounds the fact that I think there's a lot of pressure on this game, and FSU is not a football team that's done particularly well with pressure in recent years, and that's certainly a reason for concern before kickoff.
That gets us to a good starting point as we get into the preview for this upcoming game. Pressure. You mentioned pressure. It's something that Mike Norvell and Kenny Dillingham talked about at the press conference on Monday, how FSU didn't handle pressure particularly well on offense in a 17-point effort against a Division 1AA team. I guess they're FCS now, but I like 1AA in my mind. Start off with the drop the drop of the opening drive with Keyshawn Helton. What could be a walk-in touchdown on 4th down. Instead, turnover on downs. Next drive, penalties. Guys start pressing a little bit and start trying to make something big happen instead of just being able to methodically move the ball down the field. And FSU's offense just looks more or less inept and discombobulated for the entirety of that game, which is a far cry from what it was against Notre Dame, where you're able to score pretty regularly. Even if it's on chunk plays, you're able to score a certain amount of points there that Notre Dame does not give up. So against Wake Forest here, I think the starting point, Chris, is the quarterback usage. And we've seen two different starters through two games, Mackenzie Milton and Jordan Travis. First off, Jordan Travis is still with the team. Twitter rumors were not correct, shockingly. Were you shocked by that, Chris?
No.
No, they were not. So Jordan Travis is around, is with the team now. Now I will say this: Jordan, from what I can gather, and we weren't able to talk to Jordan this week, but he was frustrated. He was frustrated by his use and his role on Saturday, and I don't even think that's a matter of starting or not. I think it's more of just he gets 8 snaps in the first half and kind of in the gadgety role the first drive, and then he gets three snaps and it's a 3 and out as a quarterback a little bit later on in the first half. And that's all we really see from Jordan Travis. Chris, I'm really interested to see how the quarterback position kind of works itself out. Mackenzie Milton's listed as a starter on the depth chart. But do we see FSU? They were so adamant a week ago on saying both of them are going to have to help us this season and often in games. Do we believe that Jordan Travis and Mackenzie Milton dynamic has gotten closer to being figured out and worked out this week, or is that still TBD for you?
I think it's very TBD. I think they've gone a bit back to the drawing board each week. And that second series of last week, when they tried to put the two of them on the field together, obviously failed pretty miserably. And then the second half, Jordan Travis wasn't involved. And I'm not talking only on the field. I'm talking he was not in the huddle, central focus, looked like a guy who was expecting to get back in the game. That wasn't the case. He was in the back of huddles, helmet off. I don't even think he was carrying his helmet, if I remember correctly. So I don't know. It's a weird deal. I obviously expect them to go with Milton. He's started on depth chart. He's a guy that's had more opportunity this week to prepare for this game. So I expect it to be him. Do I think Travis plays? Yeah, I think he gets in there in some form or fashion. Do I think it's in a similar fashion to last week? I don't. But I'm not sure how they're going to go about it. I don't know if it's one where you give him a series and it's solely him at quarterback. No two quarterback look out there at the same time. I'm not sure what they do. This game, there's always uncertainty with college football games. There's always uncertainty with FSU because they've been such an inconsistent squad for so many years on top of each other now that it's kind of tough to say what you expect. I will fully admit with Wake Forest game, I don't know what the hell to expect with Florida State. And that's in so many facets. It's in the response sense. It's in the what is the offense going to try to be. If I'm out there, I think the idea is you line up, you try to run the ball, you try to be effective with that, set up play action, go for shot plays. And if you need some running from your quarterback position, more so than what Milton is able to provide or that you probably should put on that kid's shoulders, then you look to Travis as kind of that curveball changeup guy, and you allow him to come in and do what he can do most effectively with his legs. Screw the whole idea of trying to make him into a great passer that they had hoped to do in the preseason with him being more effective in that setting. It hasn't translated in 2 games. Let him go be the guy that he is, and that's a great athlete. But I don't know if that's what they'll do. And defensively, I'm interested to see how they respond after having such a miserable ending to a game with the final 2 plays there, but especially that last play that everybody's going to remember for a long, long time. So There's a whole lot of just, I don't know. I'm very interested in Winston-Salem, what I'm thinking by 4
You're the first person to ever say that. I'm very interested in Winston-Salem. No one's ever said that before.
But I am by 4 p.m. I think we're going to have a good idea of how this team is, one, going to respond, 2, what they're trying to accomplish on the day. But at going into 3:30 p.m., I don't know the answers to that, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I do.
Yeah, I know it's not great radio or TV or broadcasting for us to say we don't know, but I think Chris and I are both in the same boat there, where we are on the same bench, if you will, where we're very, very curious to see what happens this week.
Practice didn't exactly inspire me to believe that they're going to have a great response.
Tuesday's practice, I will be totally honest and transparent with our listeners here. Tuesday's practice was the worst practice I've seen since they started allowing us to see full practices. It was sloppy. I didn't think either side of the ball was making plays, especially through the air. There was drops, and when DBs were in position to make plays, they didn't make plays on the ball. I thought the coaches were by far the loudest and most demonstrative of the guys on the field, which some of that's always going to be the case with Mike Norvell's always going to be chirping. You're always going to hear the coordinators. But after a week like that against Jacksonville State, I was hoping to see a little bit more piss and vinegar, and we didn't get that. And to me, that was concerning. Wednesday was better. And listen, practice last week's Tuesday was one of the crispest, most energetic back and forth days. The offense got the better of the defense that day, but both sides were playing the ball, were being aggressive. and we saw what it led to. So practice may not always be the best way to judge what's going to happen later in the week, but I agree with you, Chris. I didn't love what I saw on Tuesday. It was disheartening, to be honest. Yeah,
Yeah,
it wasn't great.
I mean, I don't really have much more to add. The only practice that I've seen recently that I left more discouraged with what the team was one that we saw Tate and Chuba take a majority of snaps in the preseason, and their ability to value the ball was horrible. Who's getting dunked on in the background? Knee, because I have a hoop hanging on the closet door in here. It's usually just my oldest in here just throwing down, acting like he can get off the ground. But I'd hate to break it to him genetically. He can't get off the ground.
He'll find that out in due time. Do you ever Matumbo him? You know, no. Those
He'll
days are
bother
gone.
me.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the quarterbacks. The offense as a whole, Chris, you mentioned finding the identity. I asked Mike Norvell about that yesterday, whether he feels like he has a sense of what this team's offensive identity is. He didn't really want to kind of tip his hand on what he thinks they're going to do, but he's like, yeah, I think I know what we do and what we do well. The matter of not being in 2nd and 15, 3rd and 20, no offense, regardless of your identity, is going to operate well. And that's true, right? That they are, when him and Kenny Dillingham talk about that, if you're living behind the chains constantly after first down, that is going to limit what you can do. At the same time, I have concerns and questions about the personnel and whether after what we saw on Saturday, whether that this staff has a firm grasp on the guys that of what they can do well and what their weaknesses are and whether to go away from those weaknesses. Lawrence Toafili stands out. That usage, the sporadic usage of Jordan Travis that we talked about earlier comes to mind. We're still waiting to see where the wide receivers step up. I've gotten a couple of comments on that here on the in the comment section of the video. Wide receivers are still very much so TBD, and maybe we see some mixing and matching with Darian Williamson, more Malik McClain, Ontario Wilson should be back in the fold this week. I don't know, Chris. I would just try to run the ball, and then build the play action off of it. You mentioned that earlier. Do you think FSU can do that though with some of its offensive line limitations that it's having at the moment?
They've been effective at running ball. I think it's to the left side consistently this season. It might be left end or right end, but to the end, they've been a stronger team. Trayshawn Ward's very good at climbing that ladder when he gets over there. Jayshawn Corbin's running with authority. I thought that was very good. I think they can, but yeah, I mean, to transition this conversation a little bit, it goes along with Nationwide Nolan. Any updates on Scott and Smith for this week? It's talking about Robert Scott and Maurice Smith. Maurice Smith was unavailable last week. I think that's going to be the case again this week. Nothing indicated that it looked like he was ready to return. I think Robert Scott's probably a bit more of a game time decision type. He's a guy that we're not 100% sure what the ailment is. Something we think lower extremity, but we're not positive. We never really got super good clarification on that. He never came out of a game and went to the tent and had to get really worked on. It was more came out, couldn't play anymore, sat on the bench type of deal for him last week when he came out of game. So I think it's a toss-up there. But, yeah, if they're missing those two guys, you're talking about Bavion at center and Brady Scott likely at one of the tackle positions, probably sliding Darius over and playing Brady in Darius' spot. That makes you insanely razor thin. Another injury at center, Darius Washington's probably sliding in there. You're probably playing Zane Hearing and sliding a guard out, or you're playing Lloyd Willis at tackle, who's not ready for the live bullets. So, yeah, the depth doesn't exist on the O-line. So they're living a life with that position group right now where they're one step away from it going from bad to just insanely worse. And that's going to be a storyline over the next 11 weeks, 10 games of this season. So, yeah, it's a concern. Now, do they get beat up in this game? Don't know. Can't forecast that. And hopefully they do have Robert Scott. That alleviates a little bit of that pressure. But that's a major concern. And if you don't have that, you can't run the ball, you can't protect. Your offense is kind of DOA. And we've seen that before here in recent years.
And at the beginning of the season, we had some optimism of the offensive line taking the step to being average. But that was with the belief that everyone would be healthy and available. And that just hasn't been the case for the offensive line pretty much all preseason camp and 2 weeks into the season. I think the ideal lineup they had going into the year has maybe been together. We saw at the opening couple drives against Notre Dame and maybe a couple days before then. And that's it. They've dealt with attrition. They dealt with injuries. Dante Lucas not developing and him departing from the team. Long run, yeah, it's probably for the best. Short run and what that does. And I know he far from perfect, has penalties, but what that does for your depth, FSU started the season by saying what, Chris, 7 or 8 offensive linemen, or 8 or 9 that they felt good about.
I can't remember. I think we heard both numbers starting about 7, 8, 8, 9.
Well, let's say it was 9.
The truth was it was about 7.
Yeah.
And with Dante earning his pink slip, and believe me, he earned it, it became 6 very quickly. And with 2 injuries, I'm not trying to beg on a kid, but Brady Scott starting for an offensive line isn't a good thing for that offensive line.
Yeah. Or Bavian Johnson being the only center that you have really going into a game. One for him to be the backup or swing backup interior offensive lineman. It's another for him to be the guardian between him snapping the ball and then someone who's never really snapped the ball other than sometimes in practice, being Darius Washington. And that would be a tough spot for Darius to be in. So, yeah, there's concerns for the offensive line that we have, not just for this week against Wake Forest, but if they can't, to be that beat up this early into the season, 2 games in, is difficult. I don't know how else to put that or articulate it. It is concerning.
The one thing you can do to alleviate some of that pressure on the offensive line is going more jumbo, more heavy with multiple tight ends out there. And we saw them do that at times in the first 2 games. And they ran with success in such sets. So I think that's something we might see more of.
Go Wildcat,
I don't
maybe.
think Wildcat's going away.
Go a little Wildcat.
And we all know I'm such a big fan of the Wildcat. But I don't think that's going away. And I don't think they're going to simplify the offense. I don't think they're going to take a micro view with the offense or anything they truthfully do. I think they're going to stick with a macro view of what they're trying to be ultimately. And that's who what they are and what they're trying to do. But the offense will be better if they just stop self-sabotaging. Every game, all the time, for years now, sabotage has been their biggest issue. You can't have the pre-snap penalties. You can't have guys hidden behind the line of scrimmage. You can't have 2 guys lined up at the same place. Those kind of things are boneheaded, idiotic mistakes that cannot continue to persist, and they have to be gone. And people are like, well, you play different people. They don't really have other options. I often find myself invoking that comment on the message board and in discussions. They don't have the depth that they can utilize to reinforce things by benching people. They just simply don't have that at some spots. There's not enough reliable people at certain spots, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Which can be a pretty big motivator sometimes. If you lack that as a coaching staff, that limits you what you can do. I wrote about the other day, Chris, like some guys, skill players I would like to see a little bit more of. Doesn't mean I need to see them all the time, just their usage jump up a little bit. Man, I feel like we're already kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of like your options and your hope for breakout guys or people who can kind of elevate their play quickly and mature to a point where you can play them regularly or at a higher rate than you do now. We're already 2 games in the season talking about that. And then I think that explains where FSU is in its development. The hope that we had some best case scenario working out with the wide receivers, like Andrew Parchment being engaged, really big play, explosive. Even if he was going to be someone who's going to have big games and then be quiet, through 2 games, he's been pretty quiet and has not been very good blocking downfield. Kentron's a big play guy who hasn't done much. He may get some more run. Darian Williamson is someone I like. I think we'll see more of him. But man, you're limited with what you have on offense, and the staff is going to have to be creative. And I think that's why you're going to see throughout the season Jordan Travis used in different ways, whether you like it or not. That's probably something that is a part of this offense. That's why you're going to see the Wildcats. You have to find different ways to matriculate the ball. You may not be a fan of it.
Lawrence Toafili too.
Yeah, because he can
because he's capable of chunk plays.
And they have to live off chunk plays because sustaining drives isn't something that they do very well right now.
I think it's worth. I know me and you have had that discussion this week. We're not hating on Lawrence Toafili. He's one of the more talented guys on this football team, especially offensive skill wise. The issue is the usage of Toafili at the late stage of that game last week seemed short-sighted, I guess is a good term to use.
It seemed forced.
Yeah, comparatively to using Jayshon Corbin, who is your best offensive player through 2 games to that point, and your best running back, and a guy that is willing to bang and try to get a couple extra yards here and there, has shown the willingness to do that, to wear down the clock. So you're going away from Corbin using Toafili, who seemed like your 3rd option versus your 1st, and you got Ward in the middle. That seemed weird. The idea of using Toafili is not a bad one. It's a matter of when and where and how you use them that I think was the issue that I know I had, I think you had, and I think a lot of fans had as well pertaining to that subject.
I had Pete just point out that Jayshon Corbin is 15th nationally in rushing yards. I think he's even higher, Pete, in yards per carry after contact. I think he's 4th nationally. So he's someone who had, and part of that is I think that 89-yard touchdown run where he broke an arm tackle and gets a ton of that yardage after there. But still, point being is that he does break tackles. He moves the pile situationally is what we're going back to last week against Jacksonville State. And I know we don't want to rehash a lot of Jacksonville State. There was some questions about the personnel you were using in the situations. I don't have a problem with Lawrence Toafili getting the ball 10 times a game. I think that's smart for FSU to continue to try to find creative ways to get him the ball because he is someone who's capable of being a game breaker, whether it's as a running back or as a receiver. He has that potential, and I think you have to continue to use it and utilize it. I'm all here for Chris. Put Lawrence Toafili in the Wildcat, let him break a 99-yard touchdown run on 1st and 10 from your own 1, and then Kenny Dillingham just going degeneration style.
You like using the word Wildcat just to try to trigger me.
It does work.
I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm a Dolphins fan. We love that thing. But it's time to move on.
That's not going anywhere. Sorry to say to you, sir. And I kind of understand it.
I'm going to repost your article so you can get more downvotes.
Did you downvote it?
Actually, no, I don't think so. I think I took pity on your soul. I knew the others would handle it for us.
Alrighty, so switching to the defense, and the defense did what it was supposed to do for a majority of last week. However, the final couple drives, and especially that last play, is going to be a toughie and one that we will probably never forget.
Where's my dude from Notre Dame week that said that 3rd and 17 was the worst call ever? Because, hey, man, you got one up last week.
That's what happens when you're hyperbolic. When you're hyperbolic, it doesn't leave room for there to be more. And there was something that was worse than 3rd and 17. Whether it was a cover 2 man under or a cover 1 robber or just guys not getting the play in, it happened. It could have, even if the play call was bad, which was not a good play call, regardless of what it was. You need to be back further. The players have to make a play as well. Jarvis Brownlee, I will give him a ton of credit. He came, faced the music, fessed up, stood in front of media members with cameras on him and said, big time players need to make big time plays. I didn't do that. He pointed to not finishing plays in a similar scenario in practice and not learning from that, and that coming back and biting him in the ASS is what he said. He's obviously someone who is going through a difficult time and losing his godfather. That was tough for him to find out the day of the game, I believe. Someone who was a mentor and he was close to. I don't think that helps anything. He's someone who didn't have a great week earlier on and maybe didn't take care of what he was supposed to do during the week. So I give Jarvis credit for coming through and saying, this is what didn't happen on the play. This is what I need to do. I messed up. I need to be better. Credit. Now the next step is what, Chris? Now the defense in general and Jarvis, they have to they're talking the talk. Now you have to walk the walk and hopefully come out pissed off and aggressive on Saturday.
Yeah, you got to play better as a whole. Defensive backs have to locate the ball. It's been a massive issue 2 weeks in. It's very simple with the defense. It's just time to be a better unit consistently. And they were better against Jacksonville State, but they did allow 3 extremely lengthy drives, including one that they completely assisted with penalties and another one where they just couldn't get off the field. And then, 6 seconds, 59 yards to go, and you give it up. Like, you got to protect that chalky line in the back. You don't let that happen. But that's not solely on the players either.
It takes many parties to have the monumental mess up that we saw on Saturday. On defense, I think we're going to be interested to see, does the defensive line continue to set the tone and play the same energy it has through 2 games? A big variable for this game, and I know it seems kind of minute in the grand scheme of things, but Kalen DeLoach has been your best linebacker through 3 games. He's played the most of any linebacker you've had. He's been the one you can trust to be on the field every down. He's made hustle plays in both games. You had to hustle down and knock the punt out to the 1-yard line. This past weekend was great, and that followed up him hustling on that 3rd and 17 screenplay that Chris alluded to earlier against Notre Dame. He misses the first half against Wake Forest because of a targeting penalty that I thought was iffy against Jacksonville State in the second half. So now you're without your most versatile and your every down linebacker through 2 games. Yeah, that to me is underrated part of what we're going to see on Saturday.
Gainer, Lundy are probably your first 2 men up if you're playing a 2 linebacker set. If you're playing 3, then you're probably throwing Dix out there or maybe Green McKnight or even bringing somebody like a Brendan Gant down a little bit more, or Robinson down a little bit more, acting as almost a linebacker instead of a safety type or a nickel type. Yeah, it's concerning. And Wake's a kind of offense that they will, with that slow mesh and what they do with pulling it and popping it, if your linebackers get caught or too aggressive or get caught flat-footed, man, they'll make you pay. Wake is very, very good at exploiting what you're not doing well. Daniel Cronin writes, heard of 3 DBs that were in discipline jerseys, aka orange jerseys, the other day at practice. Won't ask for names, but did you guys see that? Yes, we did. And should there be any worry about the buy-in still, or did it seem non-worrisome? I would worry about it, but I think Jarvis Brownlee, to some degree, kind of gave you the context clues on that situation when he spoke with the media yesterday. So if you did not listen to that interview, feel free to go back and listen to it. It is concerning. You don't want guys in orange. They weren't the only 3 players this week to wear orange. It was just a matter of 3 guys who are fairly significant pieces of this football team wearing it is a bit concerning. The orange jersey is not so much for doing something wrong in a game. It could be, but it usually is not. It's more for something related to a meeting or living up to a standard of what's expected of you in the sense of doing your daily routine, doing what's expected in film study, team meeting, being on time, showing up the way you're supposed to show up to work, those kind of things. That's more where the orange jersey comes from, just to clarify that for people.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, people have been asking. Yeah, I don't want to get into too much details on it. I think there's context clues to where you can go ahead and if you're paying attention, you can figure it out for yourself. It's not the end of the world. The team does need to be more engaged throughout the week, and I think what happened with that only further leads to this belief that FSU wasn't super dialed in for Jacksonville State. I think that's the concern that you have moving forward is culturally our guys where you thought they were, where you thought this team was about to turn the page. Did you let your foot off the gas a little bit?
Yeah, I appreciated Brownlee speaking, as you already spoke on, the fact that he stepped up and did have that conversation. I also appreciate that I felt like he was very honest about things. The more concerning part of his comments beyond that play, and obviously that play is extremely disappointing and one that's not going to be easily forgotten, was the practice-related comments.
Yeah. Yep. To say that I had messed up in practice
a lot of times. And, he kind of owned up to that to his credit, but at the same time, he now understands like it's important. And I hope the other people that were part of that party understand that as well.
I thought that was the most telling, the 2 comments he had about executing the play and some mistakes had come up in practice, translating over to that moment in the game on Saturday, and then not doing the things maybe as the DB group as a whole, not doing what they needed to do the week of practice to be dialed in and as focused and as detail oriented as it needed to be. We'll see. Like as we transition here, start talking about Wake Forest a little bit. Saturday against Jacksonville State could be it is the low point for the program right now. It's the one in modern football. Covering FSU since 2013. It's the lowest point that there's been in covering FSU. This is rock bottom. We joke about all the time. This is as rock bottom as we get for now. We'll see.
Dust it off, Snow.
If it can be trumped at all. But all right. So can it be a turning point? Can it be something that this was your rock bottom and you end up doing some soul searching, looking in the mirror and say, I don't want to live this life and need to be better than this as players, as coaches, program as a whole. We'll see. That's what I think is going to be so interesting and the reason why people are not completely checked out yet of this program. And that is apathy is the next step. We saw that at the end of the Willie tenure. We saw that at times in Jimbo's tenure, even when they were rattling off 10 wins, the way they were out of the playoff picture early in the season led to apathy. Apathy is the worst thing that can happen to a program. It was rejuvenated under Mike Norvell, especially at the start of this season with the recruiting class they'd put together, the transfers they had added, the performance they put together against Notre Dame, even in a loss. It was sky high. There was optimism, and then for it to go rock bottom. Saturday's coming up. Chris and I have already said we don't really know what we're going to see from this team from a response standpoint. They've been preaching response all week in practice. They've been preaching, all preseason response, finish, climb, all the keywords. Sometimes it resonates and sometimes it hasn't. They have been very, very keenly aware if they are just a couple plays away from being 2-0. Instead, they're 0-2. As we go into this Wake Forest game, Chris, what concerns me, and I'm going to ask you to dust off your 247 on Wake Forest here. What concerns me is that Wake Forest, yeah, they're 2-0. They haven't played great teams. Old Dominion's a low-tier FBS team. They played, I can't even remember the FCS team. William and Mary?
Norfolk State.
Oh, it was Norfolk State. All right, somewhere up in the Virginia area. I don't feel great going into this game for the reason that, yeah, from an athlete standpoint, even though you aren't where you want to be by any means as a program, you're still probably going to be better than Wake Forest from an athlete to athlete standpoint. But Wake Forest is so well coached by Dave Clawson, and they have a steady quarterback who doesn't really make a lot of mistakes. Wake Forest doesn't really beat itself a ton, and FSU hasn't really shown consistently in years now that they can consistently make teams pay for basically forcing you to beat them. We saw even against Jacksonville State, Mackenzie Milton was asked to throw a bunch of little short passes over and over again, ends up biting FSU in the butt. So, Chris, with that in mind, Wake Forest, what are you seeing from them? What do our listeners and readers at Knowles 24/7 need to be aware of?
Well, as you said, they're 2-0, 42-10 over Old Dominion, 41-16 over Norfolk State. In both of those games, those teams played sort of keep away. Wake's only averaged about 24 minutes with the ball in the two games. So, Wake's offense is very tempo-ridden, very fast. That slow mesh is aggravating. Hartman's good at pulling and running if he needs to. Also got Christian Bill Smith is their primary back, but they got a couple backs they can rely upon. And then the Roberson kid at wide receiver is an excellent football player, arguably the best receiver in the league, not named probably Justin Ross. Or maybe Zay. Zay's pretty good too. But Roberson's super consistent. I think 6 straight with a touchdown, might even be 7 straight at this point. I believe he led the league in yards per game last year. Pete's asking about the receivers. In addition to Roberson, they have A.T. Perry. He's a sophomore, redshirt sophomore. He's a 6'5", 206-pound outside guy. Kind of just a mismatch. They're going to throw some up to him. You got to go up there and get it. Obviously, big catch radius comes with being 6'5". And then Keyshawn Williams is a pretty talented freshman for them. He's got 1 touchdown so far in a year, 6 receptions, 56 yards. Pretty dynamic kid that can do a little bit of stuff. And their backs can also catch it out of the backfield. And Hartman, the best thing about Hartman is he values the football extremely well. He's 35 of 52 on the year, 432 with 4 passing touchdowns. He's a capable runner, but I wouldn't exactly call him a dual threat. But he is capable of beating you with his legs if he has to take it. He's excellent at running that system. The thing about Wake that makes him so dangerous is a lot of super seniors. I think they got 9, if I recall correctly. They've got a lot of veteran guys on that team, a lot of guys who have had a lot of reps, a lot of guys who have had a lot of play. Something Clawson has tried to do intentionally over recent years is play a lot of players so they develop good depth. And they probably have the best depth they've had in his time at Wake Forest with this current team. That's always a concern. Defensively, they're not big. They're not flashy. They don't have a dude like Jesse Bates that they had a few years ago in secondary who was a stud. Luke Masterson is a linebacker. He's a true kind of like Mike type. He's going to be an enforcer, going to get guys down to the ground, going to plug holes, going to do what you expect. They got enough up front that they can bother you. They're going to be aggressive, but they don't have a Carlos Basham up there like they had last year, guy who I love who's now playing on Sundays. But they're completely capable on the defensive side of the ball. They've racked up, I believe it's 3 interceptions on the year. They haven't been very good at poking the ball loose so far, but they will try to do that. That's something they traditionally try to do as a defense, is being very aggressive at creating turnovers. They were one of the better teams in the country last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember for sure which one it was at doing that. But they don't shoot themselves in the foot. They're like the polar opposite of FSU in that regard. FSU loves racking up penalties. It seems like a great national pastime at this point. And Wake Forest ranks 120. I'm sorry, that's the time of possession. Let me find the exact stat on penalties again.
You're looking for
I have it up here.
Wake Forest
penalties. Yeah. So through 2 games, 3 penalties, 32 penalty yards per game is their average.
FSU, on the other
Top
hand, is
5 in the nation.
FSU is 121st nationally with 84 penalty yards per game, or 10 penalties per game, and they have 84 penalty yards per game.
And going back to the offensive side of the ball and Hartman being able to do his job, part of the reason for that, and it's tough to judge this stat, and I think FSU will have much more success against this stat than the stat makes you think they will. They've only allowed 2 sacks and 7 tackles for loss, 3.5 per game through the first 2 games. Some of that's the opponents they played. I think Jermaine's going to be able to do some of what he does best. I think Keir Thomas, those interior guys they're going to be able to enforce their will a little bit up at the front. But the problem is Wake also kind of wants you to be aggressive with that slow mesh. If you're getting in there and lanes are opening, they're going to pull and run. Or if a backer's crashing down and a guy's running behind them, hard slant underneath the safety, they're going to take it. Or if they got the one-on-one outside, once in a while they're going to go for it. they're all about basically when somebody's eyes play a trick on them, not eye candy necessarily, but basically the idea of I need to crash or they freeze or they hold for a second. That's what they attempt to exploit, and they're pretty dang good at it.
All right. Briley asks, with the way y'all are talking, the line sounds way off. Any thoughts on why Vegas has this so close?
I think part of that is Wake has a tendency to sometimes keep games tighter than they have to be. Wake's a weird team. Sometimes it gets rolling downhill and it's an avalanche effect. They'll run away with it. They'll rack up points, or tempo will kick the other team's butt. It very quickly put 14 up on the board because they score, get it back, score immediately, changes the whole tune of a game. But sometimes because their defense isn't great by any stretch, their defense is definitely one you should be able to go out and score points against. You sometimes get in a bit of a dogfight type match, and it's a game played in the 30s, high 20s for the two teams, or even 40s, mid 30s. They have that tendency. So I think that's why that line stayed around. I think it's 5 at last check. It's been around 6.5 to 5, I think, since it opened. That's why I think it stayed in that touchdown realm. FSU can beat Wake. I wholeheartedly believe that. Heck, I'm not making a prediction on this show, so now don't you make me do it.
What?
I don't know. Maybe I will. I've tossed around actually even picking FSU, despite the fact that I have a great deal of a lack of confidence in FSU because of the inconsistencies the last 2 weeks. Because I do think Wake is very beatable. But if FSU plays poorly, Wake will whoop them.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those weird games where I feel like they can win just as easily get blown out.
Yeah. We'll get to predictions at the end.
One possession game either way type of game.
I mean, it could be that too. It could be literally anything across the board. I don't know if I would be surprised by it. It could be this. It could be that. It could be somewhere in the middle. All right, let's go. You know what is great radio? And I know you want to do?
Buy or Sonone. I know you
want
to do
Buy or Sonone.
Get it out of your system.
All right, so we're going to go down the line of what most of our Unconquered subscribers have asked. They get first priority because they're paying to ask these questions. But if you're here watching and listening, feel free to add it. J-Rod said don't say it. He doesn't want you to say that the FSU is going to lose. If you have questions, feel free to ask him here on the YouTube stream. Or does he not want me to
pick him win?
Oh. J-Rod, elaborate for us. All right, Buy or Sonone. Here we go. I'm not going to start with that one. That's not a good one. All right, TD12 asks, Buy or Sonone. We see J-Trev and KZ on the field together at any point versus Wake Forest.
I'm Sononing it. I don't think they do it again this week.
I'm going to say buy. Kenny Dillingham finds the closest camera, does the Degeneration X style suck it deal, and says, how you like me now? Buy or Sonone from Tampa Knoll 776. FSU, as of right now, FSU wins 5 games or more this season.
I'd probably Sonone it. I'd push it if I could take it, but since I got to do buy or Sonone, I guess I'm Sononing it because I think 5 is the cap at this point.
Yeah, we were in the 5 to 6 win range preseason of kind of going back and forth there, which was the Vegas line had, and that made sense on paper. And I think I settled at 6, but Jacksonville State was a win for me. And if you can lose to Jacksonville State, you can lose to anyone. So I'm Sononing that as well as of right now what we have. ATL Null 88, Buy or Sonone. Brendan has another player's mom, Adam, on Twitter before season's end.
I'll Sonone it.
That's a hard buy for me. I am a lightning rod for controversy, despite being very vanilla. TD12 asks, Buy or Sonone. Chris has become a big fan of the Wildcat by season's end.
I am Sononing that.
What would J-Rod said don't pick them to win is what he asked for. What would it take for you to become a fan of the Wildcat? Because they ran the hell out of the Wildcat.
I'll never be a fan. I don't like the Wildcat, buddy. I don't. It's not an FSU thing with the Wildcat. I definitely don't like how FSU's used, and I definitely don't like the effectiveness of it this year for FSU. I don't like the Wildcat. If you've got a quarterback capable of scrambling, you do not need to line up in the Wildcat and be cute with it. What you're trying to effectively do, which is cause a counting issue, you can do with a scrambling quarterback just as easily.
All right, I got one from people listening live on YouTube here. Michael Steven asks, 4 losses by more than 4 touchdowns this season, Buy or Sonone?
Sononing for now because I don't think they're going to wave the white flag and quit. But, ask me that one after they lose on Saturday, and it might start gravitating that direction. That's definitely a concern. I mean, we've seen that in recent years. This group hasn't looked like they're ready to quit. We got that feeling in past years from other teams the last 2 years, but this team hasn't yet reached that point. But, I mean, obviously it's a concern. If they start 0-3, I mean, they're basically playing the loser leave town game with Louisville in a week.
Yes. Yes, has potentially. A big drip Nola, Spire Snow, Mike Norvell being able to prevent the football team from quitting this season. It's kind of the same question. We don't have to go over that big drip Nola, but that is very much so on the table is we're going to be closely monitoring how Mike Norvell's culture, uh, has kind of settled in throughout this program. Like, is there enough buy-in? We talked about the transfers and kind of this mercenary mentality that you have that can be good or bad depending on how things unfold, in addition to having to do a ton of a roster overhaul the last two off seasons. This is more than a 50% new roster in a 2-year span. So we'll see to that. Chris 333333333 Spire Sinone. If Fuller isn't retained, FSU hires from within the program. So that'd be Adam Fuller, defensive coordinator. I'm going to go Sonone. I don't think there's anyone that you promote internally if the guy at the top isn't getting it done. Chris, what say you?
I'd lean towards Sonone. I think FSU has to get very serious about hiring coordinators next time they are in that position.
Yeah. And Adam Fuller's allowed to turn things around. He's allowed to keep his job. That is allowed to happen, but there does have to be improvement from what we've seen right now. Chris 333 also has Byers to know this fan base might be more fragile than our actual players. Woo! Coming out with the heat.
I'm Sononing that. The fan base still supports a program that hasn't been very good in several years, and I love that fact. They should, especially if it's your alma mater. Love your plays, whether they're winners or losers. Love it. And I feel that way, personally. But, man, it's frustrating. It is not enjoyable, and it's not necessarily just losing. It's a matter of how they go about losing so often. The sideshow factor that's existed for years, it's not enjoyable.
It's not. You can't just lose. You have to have a turnover backpack. You can't just lose. There has to be a proposal on the sideline after the loss. It is entertaining. I will say that FSU does make it entertaining, win or lose. There is something to be said for that.
I walked into this year expecting FSU to have to fight their rear ends off to win 6 games. That was my personal expectations. And I would have been perfectly fine with it if it seemed competitive at all times, all out effort at all times, and it was how the chips fell. That wasn't Saturday.
No, Saturday felt so self-inflicted. I mean, we talked about this the other day, Chris, when we were just watching practice. Like, we were so looking forward to seeing this team kind of figure itself out. And even though we knew that was going to come with games where they probably just didn't look very good and didn't have it that day, we were looking forward to seeing that gradual climb, that clawing to try to get to 6 wins. Like, we were looking forward to. That could be fun to see growth incrementally and to cover it. And that just that life got sucked out of us, like just covering the team. I feel like after last week's performance. But again, FSU's allowed to win. They're allowed to turn things around. There's nothing that says you can't go ahead and upset Wake on the road this weekend. And yes, it is an upset. You're our favorite to lose currently. It's allowed to happen.
I'll read J-Rod 31s here. Byers and Owen. If FSU is 0-3, Jermaine Johnson starts to think about opting out, packing up and opting out. Sonone took the question away before I could finish.
Sorry, I realized I did
that's
it.
That's the kind of host he is.
There it is. It's back again.
He starts to think about prepping for the draft and opting out. That's the way J-Rod finished.
I was going to take it away from you again.
It's funny. I brought this exact topic up to somebody yesterday. I don't think it happens at 0-3. I think he would like to play a couple more high-quality opponents. I'm thinking Clemson, UNC, Miami, those types. Get into a little bit more meat of the back half of the schedule, put some more good film out there. But if statistically he's at a certain place and he has good film against 2-3 quality opponents, I mean, that's a trend in college football. I don't want to speak for the kid. I don't get the feeling he's that type necessarily who's already gone there mentally, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least, no.
Yeah, I was talking about that with someone yesterday as well, and he still needs to put up good film. So to your point, Chris, there has to be at least a few more games, but this isn't someone who entered the year as a surefire NFL draft pick. He's someone who had the upside to be like as early as like a second round draft pick. And hell, he's shown that through 2 games to where if he goes and tests well, if Janarius Robinson and Joshua Kano can get drafted in the 4th round with the production they've had, if Jermaine Johnson tests well, then why couldn't he be drafted on day 2, which is the 2nd or 3rd round? But there needs to be a little bit more of a body of work is what I'm going to say.
He's passionate. I mean, he's for a guy whose investment is only essentially 8 months into this program at this point. Mm-hmm. He cares immensely. Saturday really bugged him. It bugged him in the post game. It bugged him on social media afterwards. I mean, he cares. Some of the, I know we call transfers essentially mercenaries, but truthfully, some of those guys are the most invested guys in this program. Not all of them by any stretch,
No,
but I would say
but
he is certainly one of them. Keir Thomas has been one of them with his teammates. Mackenzie
Mackenzie
Milton's one that
Milton.
comes to mind.
Yeah.
But
No,
we need
that's
others like Andrew Parchment to catch up.
Jamie Robinson
Yeah.
needs to do more. Marcus Kushney hasn't really been a factor through 2 games. I don't know if it's an effort thing for him. I just say he hasn't really caught up to this level of speed of game yet. But I would, and I guess one of the games was against an FCS opponent. But regardless, those guys happen to be the face of your program. They happen to be the leaders: Mackenzie Milton, Jermaine Johnson, Keir Thomas, and their effort and their practice habits have been where they need to be. That's really what you're hoping for at this point, is for those guys to be the ones who can kind of bring you out of this, that can help elevate the younger guys who you believe in, that believe in Mike Norvell, and kind of be leaders by example, vocally. Yeah, that's what you're hoping for. So I don't have any indication that Jermaine's checking out or anything like that right now. It certainly doesn't seem like it. Agent KOK asks, Buyer Sinone, Norvell going 2-0 to start conference play would be better for the program than if Norvell had beaten Notre Dame and Jacksonville State, but then lost to Wake Forest or Louisville. So would you rather trade that off, Chris? Would you rather take the last 2 weeks as they've materialized and trade that for wins against Wake Forest and Louisville?
No, because you just as easily could have started 2-0 in conference and not lost to an FCS opponent.
And there is the Notre Dame win would be the best of any of the wins of these first 4 games, and the worst loss is last weekend in that scenario. So you would avoid that if you lost to Wake Forest and Louisville.
Still, the idea of trying to get the 6-6, the hope was that it would be ballpark 4-1 after 5 games, or 3-2 at worst. 3-2 is the at best scenario now.
Yeah, regardless. No-blooded, 2-5, 2-5, Buyer Sinone, Travis Hunter ends up at FSU. We've got a lot of questions. People are worried about Travis
I'm
Hunter.
buying it. He loves Marcus Woodson. He wants to be here. He's still a guy that's very vocal about the class. Now, if it keeps going sideways and downhill, who knows? We've seen this movie before, but that kid, it's going to take an immense amount of things for him to change his mind, in my opinion. He is a kid that is fully bought in and has an unbelievably strong relationship with his position coach / recruiter.
Yeah, it would take an awful lot of things to change for Travis Hunter to not be a part of this class. Would like to see you not lose Jacksonville State, though, as part of building up some goodwill with him. South Florida, Noel asks, Buyer Sinone, 3 or more guys in the portal before the Miami game. Are we including Dante Lucas, who's not technically in the portal yet? Probably not, right?
Yeah, I presume they mean 3 additional ones.
So Miami game is what, early November?
November 13th, I believe.
Ooh, that's a good question. And 3 is a good number too. 3 or more, so it can be 3. You know what? I will buy. I think there might be a little bit more shakeout, especially coming off of the bye week in time to kind of reevaluate things for everyone. I'll buy it. What about you, Chris?
I'll known it for now, but I think 3 is a phenomenally good number.
It is. It's a really
good
good
job
line
in Vegas, my sir.
All right, let's see. It's another question about to figure it out and Wildcat questions. Oh man, people are so angry about the Wildcat. I love it. Here's a good one, Chris. Mersad asks, Buyer Sinone, penalties have a bigger impact on our ability to win than drop passes do.
I'd agree with that, because we get in situations where we have to throw because of the penalties. If you take away the penalties, you're in more situations where you can potentially run, or at least run something that's much more conceivably able to be converted.
So Buyer Sinone, answer the question.
I'm buying it.
Correctly.
I'm buying it. I think the penalties are the most damaging thing to FSU's offense currently. Among a bevy of issues, it is the most damaging. They can't play 2nd and long and 3rd and long. They can't survive that. Most teams can't. This team certainly can't. They don't have enough number 1 receivers. Heck, I'm not sure they have enough number 2 receivers to get away with that.
And their offensive line
tight end.
Isn't what it is.
Enough offensive line.
Yeah. Yep. Broderick, Buyer Sinone, we are more likely to be 2-10 or 6. Well, wait, let me change it. So
why do you call him Broderick Sinone?
Did I say Broderick Sinone? Because I'm looking at Buyer Sinone.
Sure.
Broderick, we're related. Sorry. Buyer Sinone, we are more likely to be 2-10 than 6-6.
I think it's more likely to fall in the middle of those two, but since Broderick wants me to pick one, I guess I'm buying on. I'll go 6-6.
I would buy that too. People go back. Buyer Sonone. I called Broderick Sonone.
Told you.
No, I'm asking for people to confirm it for us here. Let's see. Since Hey It's All Good is asked it a couple times, Buyer Sonone, Adam Fuller calls a complete game against Wake. I don't know what that means. Like he doesn't get taken out of the game. It's like a complete game pitcher. Is that what we're asking?
I mean, I'll go buy, but Wake is one of those that even makes really good DCs look bad.
I have to say that when we started previewing the Wake game, Chris, the views dropped down to like 70 people watching this, and it was at about 90. And then once we started doing Buyer Sonone, I'm not saying that people love it, but it's been flirting with 100. Oh, no, that's below 90. Oh, God. We became self-aware, and they checked out. They checked out fast. All right.
Apathy is setting in.
Right in front of our eyes. What we're going to do here is we're going to do a Wake Forest prediction. I will make a prediction. Chris may or may not. We'll see. What I'm going to ask for you guys to do is to go ahead, throw in your predictions. I'm going to throw them up here onto the computer screen so everyone can see what you guys are predicting for Saturday's game. While Chris rambles on about, so get that in there while Chris is going to ramble on about his favorite topic. Go ahead, sir.
No, real quick Buyer Sonone for you. FSU is more likely to win 31-27 or lose 45-21.
An awful way to ask the question. Sonone. Wait, no, again, the way you asked it.
You have to pick one or the other. Which is more likely, a 4-point victory or a 24-point loss?
24-point loss. All right, I'm going to start throwing up your guys' stuff. Chris, go ahead, talk a little hoops, and then we'll make our predictions.
Well, all I was going to mention about hoops, last night the women's ACC schedule got dropped. Tonight the men's ACC schedule will get dropped. I believe it's 7 p.m. on Nothing But Net on the ACC network. It will be around 7:30 p.m. that the FSU release should come out with that. So we'll finally know the entire FSU men's basketball schedule for this season, just in time for them to actually play the games.
Is that a little late to be announcing that, Christopher?
I believe, yeah, I think in past years it's been, well, last year doesn't include because last year was so whacked out, but I think usually it's very, very start of September, late August usually.
All right, let's do predictions. I've been throwing them up here. Got some confident FSU fans here. Got some not so confident ones. That's to be expected. I will throw mine out first. Broderick Sonone, what do you got? What do you got? Yeah, FSU. Let's see. Brad, 31, FSU. All right, so here's going to be mine, Chris. I, like you, would not be surprised by any outcome that occurs. I could see FSU winning by multiple scores. I could see FSU losing by multiple scores. I could see a close game. I hope if it is a close game that Ricky Aguayo isn't asked to kick a field goal into the rain, because that would just lead you to probably being fired after your very next loss. What? Did I say that? Yes, I did. That's exactly what happened. I will go with Wake Forest at home. I think Wake is a more consistent team. We know more what to expect from them, so I will go with what's safer. Wake Forest 38. FSU 27.
Wow, fell on 27. That's that.
Oh, 20... Dustin. Oh, I thought he had the same score as me. Dustin almost had the same exact score.
I'm going, and I may change this in my prediction piece because I truthfully have gone very much back and forth all week. I'm going to go Wake 31, FSU 27.
Oh, I thought you were going to do the FSU upset. We'll wait for you to change it in the prediction piece.
Yeah, it might be FSU 31, Wake 27 in the prediction piece.
Do you want to change the score for us before we get out of here?
No, I'm 31-27 is my score. I just got to figure out which team I'm putting before each number.
All right. So Chris is going to be headed up to Greensboro, Winston-Salem area for us this week. Chris, safe travels. Do you have any dining plans anywhere that you want to hit up in the next 24 hours?
End up. I'm hoping to meet up with a couple friends that are staying in the same hotel. So if they're going somewhere, I may join them.
You may be in the same hotel as FSU football program.
Rumor has it.
Well, you patrol the hallways, make sure everyone's in their rooms, lights out, 10 p.m., doing what they're supposed to do, all right? Yes.
But if they do a walkthrough in the parking lot, I'll take video of
it. For Christy, I'm Brendan Sano. This has been On the Bench. Thank you to everyone for listening. Stick in the landing! Old school.